Kevin Ratcliffe, we are live. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Oh, Kevin. So it seems like a great time to speak to you after the weekend and the Merseyside derby. What was your? Of course, you were commentating. You were there for Talk Sport, watching the derby. Many of us weren't able to be there. What was your view on the actual game itself?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was very strange walking to the ground and, where you're supposed to be sort of walking through red and white. Red and blue and white and what have you. But it was really strange, walking to the ground and no supporters inside the ground. Very sort of like, I would say upbeat by everybody that's in there, but a dead sort of quiet, no rival chanting. No blue and red sort of people mingling. It was really weird. But the game itself was as good as what I've seen for a long time, as in quality as well. Quality from both sides. I thought that tactically how Carlo, after about 5-6 minutes, maybe 10, changed it slightly with the three midfield players. He sort of asked them to play a little bit further apart, mainly because they were getting overrun, little 1-2s by the midfield of Liverpool, and especially Henderson into Firmino and Salah, and then linking up playing and switching play as well. It was so quick. It was nice to see, because you see them on and you're getting to see them live and how good they do it, Liverpool. But for us to adjust and adapt to it, I thought was equally impressive as well. And, got us back into the game. We get back into the game. And I don't think there's that many times, not just against Liverpool, if we go a goal behind, that we don't come back. But that was nice to see, I must admit. And some of the football we played, and I think it's amazing to see how three players can actually change the mindset of everybody else and up their games. And yeah, I was really impressed.
The three players and one incredible new manager.
But you don't get them three players if that manager's not there, do you?
Exactly.
That's the big thing. That obviously he's got the pull, and he's obviously saying the right things to him, because we've not got European football. So in one way, I wouldn't say it's a rest of a season for them, but it's, they haven't got European football, so they can concentrate on maybe, getting that place in Europe.
Yeah, it feels different being an Everton fan right now. Definitely, because, I mean, firstly, the fight back against Liverpool, I mean, that's a big thing in itself. But then all the 4 or 5 games leading up to that, when we've been scoring goals and we've been winning, and I felt as an Everton fan for the last, 4 or 5 seasons, that some of our play was good, but we just didn't score the goal at the end.
Well, I just wonder what the stats are, as in chances created, because we look as if we're creating more chances now than we've ever created, maybe in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
It's just really good to watch, and I think there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, with what Carlo's doing. I think everybody believes in him. Players, fans, the board. So it's nice to see, and you see the quality that he's bringing in. For, I would say, a fraction of the money that we've been spending.
This is what's incredible.
Yeah.
Is that we're not spending. Oh yes, we're spending big numbers, but like 20 million isn't a huge number compared to what we have spent in the past on Sigurdsson or whoever.
Well, if you look at Iwobi, and then you look at Allen or Decore, and you're looking, how can they both be valued? One can be valued more than the other, and Iwobi be valued more than Allen or Decore. And the same with Sigurdsson. So these questions are all being asked now, aren't they? At the moment, you're winning games, so that's all you're happy with. But I have noticed that these players, Iwobi, they look as if they're a little bit fresher and, up to the challenge as well. So the bar's been lifted by these players that have come in and the manager. So it's up to these players that are already there, because, Carlo Ancelotti to come out and say that, good players can adapt anywhere, is actually putting an onus on you. If you've been brought into the football club, do you want to be a good player or not? You've got to adapt and adapt quickly. So I'm reasonably happy. Well, not reasonably. I'm very happy with what I've seen at the moment. I know it's a long season, and we 5 games in. I said, keep saying I'd like it to be 5 games to go, and we're in this position.
It definitely feels different. It definitely feels, and we're playing different. And
I don't think I've ever come away from a derby, and it's Liverpool are the ones who are moaning about it. They didn't have this. They didn't have that. And I've just let it ride, and I'm just enjoying my time as an Evertonian. That it's nice to hear them having a little bit of moan up that they've had a little bit of bad luck and now they want the rules changing.
Is it a different thing for now? You're not playing in the games. Can you step back and sort of enjoy it as a fan? Is it possible, or are you still so close to it and so emotionally attached?
I don't know. You're a fan. You're a fan now, so you get frustrated, obviously. But then again, you used to get frustrated as a player if you were watching a game and things weren't happening. But yeah, it's the first time I hadn't been nervous as a supporter going to a game after I finished playing. Watching a derby game. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird. I don't know how to explain it to you, really. That it is weird because one part of you, is a player type of thing, and the other part is that you're a supporter. And I suppose these days you're more of a supporter than you are, you're not participating. You've got no influence on the game. And I think that's the hardest thing. You haven't got an influence on the game.
Let's take a step back all the way to sort of your youth and when you got signed at Everton. I'm right in what when you were younger, what attracted you initially to football, and sort of what was your upbringing like?
We brought up as a footballing family.
Okay.
My dad and his 3 brothers had season tickets, so they were going every week. And then my 2 uncles were had disabilities, and they ran a football team on a Sunday. So one of my ambitions was always to play for the football team on a Sunday. And everybody seemed to want to play for this team because of the name more than anything. And it was D-side athletic, but there was no real sort of Sunday leagues in Wales, in the area that I lived in. So we went into the Cheshire or Chester side. So we were playing, in Chester most, the away games, and going over the border and playing around the Chester area. And then our home games obviously were in Shotton, on a pitch in Central Drive, and we used to play on there. So we used to up every morning, help me dad and his other brother to put the nets up after they'd watched the game on the Saturday, and then that was good because my dad played for him on 1 or 2 occasions when people didn't turn up because they had a good Saturday night. And my uncle and I played with both of them when I was like 14, 15 playing. So I managed to hit that ambition then and sign for Everton. I had a couple of clubs that were after me: Tottenham, Man City, Wrexham, Chester. And I went to all them clubs for trials, but I didn't really like Tottenham. Man City, I hated it. I didn't like the players, to be fair, the same age. There was a little bit of a tribal thing going on there, I think. And I felt really comfortable at Everton going in. I'm playing, sort of youth team football. I played for Chester Youth as well. So it was believe it or not, I was close to signing for Chester as a youngster. Yeah. And that was only down to the manager. And that was a fella called Ken Roberts. I remember getting injured, had a hamstring injury, and I had some trials for Wales. And I was going into Chester for treatment, and I'd get to Chester for like 8:30, and then I'd have treatment for an hour, and then the manager would take me to school. So, how many times would that happen? Or does happen. So he'd get me into school for around about, 10:45, which obviously I was late, but it was an agreement I had with the school. Obviously, if you're going to represent your school for Wales, then they wanted me fit for them internationals. So, I was going in, getting treatments, and then I was playing for them, for the youth team under a fella, another good man as well. One of the reasons he was who's passed away, like a fella called Cliff Sear, who played for Manchester City, who was well known for bringing the likes of Rushy through and everything at Chester. But that was my sort of background. But I decided, the facilities were Everton were top of the range then, at Belfield. So, when you go in there and then you're going into Chester and you're training on muddy pitches, and then you're at Goodison. Belfield was obviously different times of the year that did get muddy, but it was a different quality, obviously. And obviously with it being my club that you support, that's another thing as well. And you're getting to be coached by one of your heroes, Colin Harvey.
Well, this is it. I mean, growing up supporting Everton, then getting the opportunity to sign for Everton and then get coached by, Colin Harvey. I mean, that's just, it's every boy's dream really to go up and then end up captaining your favourite team is just an incredible thing. But of course, your career went from not just from there to then going in the 80s, going off to win a whole bunch of things as well.
Yeah, it seemed a slow process to start with because it's hard. It's hard being in them days being an apprentice, because not just like on the field, sort of getting coached, you were having other jobs to do as well. As in, as soon as you get in, you're non-stop really. Getting the kit ready for the players. Now they've got kit men that do that. Also, then after training, taking the kit, getting it dry, or getting it washed, cleaning the boots. Depending, especially in the summer when there's you've got morning, afternoon sessions. But then, when the season does start, you're coming back maybe twice a week to do training in the afternoon. It wasn't every day that you trained in an afternoon, but it'd be at least 2 days a week, maybe 3 days. It'd be Monday, Tuesday, and maybe Thursday, but it wouldn't be the Friday. That was more of a, preparation for the game, and mainly to see if your name was on the board and which team you were actually playing in, because all the teams used to play on the same day. That was the A team, the B team, the reserves, and the first team, and you always look to see which group you were in. And you could, some people would be saying, I'm in the reserves today, and or I've made it to the A team from the B team. So yeah, it was. I wouldn't change it for anything. It was tough, but it was good. It's good. Toughened you up.
It's quite interesting because not a lot of and people always just see that the moment you made your debut. I think your debut was 1980 at Man United, wasn't it? But of course, it's all those years before that. You've got to put in the hard yards, being an apprentice. But even before that, you've got to put in those hard yards to get the opportunity to get to that level.
You've got to get the fitness levels as well. You're training a lot harder because you're coming into the game. I think the one thing you can't really do with youngsters coming in to a football club is burn them out too soon. So and you've got to treat sometimes some people different than others, because some people that the birthdays at that type of you could be near enough a year older, but in the same year as him in the football club. If you know what I mean, with your school year. So that so if you're born in sort of September and then somebody's got a July birthday, you're nearly a year older than him. So, to do the same training at that age is very, very difficult to sort of judge. But everybody was treated the same. The weaker ones fell away, if you know what I mean, and the stronger ones stayed there. But it was enjoyable, but it was hard. And sometimes you're wishing, do I really need this? But you grit your teeth and get on with it. And thankfully for me, everything worked. You've got to have a lot of luck that people get injured at the right time, and then when you get your chance, you take your chance. And the one thing you've got to do when you take your chance, you got to implant something in the manager's mind that you're available, you can do it. So That's the way it was. I mean, I remember looking around one year, and the amount of centre halves in front of me was like ridiculous. You're thinking, how am I going to get into the first team from the A team into the reserves into the first team? And I remember getting dropped from the A team into the B team, not because of performances, because we had players coming back from injury who were first team players and reserve team players. There were centre backs, right backs, left backs, and I think we had Terry Dadicott, Neil Robinson, Dave Jones, and I think Roger Kenyon might have been one in the 18 playing. So how are you going to get in that? But, once things are taught to you, put to you to sort of say, look, they're just coming back from injury. It's not the way that you're playing. So the managers just want them to have a better class of football, rather than going and playing, because the B team was mainly under 17s. And then the A team really was players coming back injured, and your first year pros and apprentices.
I mean, it must have been mentally tough to go through those years when you were, trying to get into the first team and it wasn't quite happening, because it was a good few years before it happened for you. Like, what was it that kept you? I mean, did you always think, I'm going to get there, or I've just got to keep pushing? I mean, what was your mental side of it at that time?
Well, you're playing reserve team football. You're doing okay. I think the hard thing for me was when I was getting my chance, I was taking it. I was doing okay. Because a lot of people think that I come in as a left back. Well, I didn't. I come in as a centre back to start with, against Man United and then against West Ham in the Cup, and I think Tottenham away. So my first 3 games for Everton were actually at centre back, my proper position. But this following season, I got pushed to left back, and then you're in and you're out, and it was hard taking it that you were in for 3 or 4 games, and then you were out, and then you were in, and then you were out again. And you just don't think it's going to happen. So, I did ask for the transfer to go. I wanted to play in my normal position. I think it was after a Newport game. We played against Newport in the Cup. And I think we won down there 3-1 or something. And I replaced him. I think it was Mark Higgins that I replaced. And I come in, did really well, and got left out the next game. And I just went to the manager, Howard, at the time, and said, Howard, I just feel as if I've been put in to give somebody a kick up the backside, and that's it. So if you don't mind, I'd rather go and leave. So he put me on the list. Obviously, I don't think he actually thought that I was quite ready, maybe, or wasn't quite good enough. But it just sort of changed around in a short period of time then.
Well, this is it, because from you requesting it, let's take a step back for a second, because I want to pick on one thing. So you've been playing in the reserves and those, and then you make your debut at Old Trafford. I mean, that's just. I mean,
well, Howard wasn't there then. That was Gordon Lee when I was there. So I got dragged into the team, play. And what they were good at, Everton, was like taking you away. I think I'd been up to Norwich with them. And I thought I was going to be on the bench. So that was a good sort of learning curve, because you don't take anything for granted. And it was my first sort of trip away of really how to sort of, I think I roomed with Peter Eastoe, and how to sort of adapt what you do, having a meal in the night before the game, seeing how people. I always remember straight after the meal, and I think Asa Arthur said good night, see you in the morning. And I thought, it's only 8:30. But that's what he did. Everybody did different. Some players would go to other players' rooms. And that was hard for me, because I'd never stayed away overnight. And then the next morning to find that I was like 13th man, not sub, was a bit of a thing, wake-up call to sort of say, well, don't take anything for granted. And then when I got called in to the Man United game, then I wasn't expecting to be sub. I wasn't expecting to play. I thought I was going there once again for the experience. But I think it was, John Gidman got ill. So in the afternoon, Howard moved Billy Wright to right back. and played me at centre back with Mick Lyons. And,
What was it like suddenly, being thrust into it in front of Old Trafford, in front of that, and what was that, 50, 60,000 people at the time?
Look, I had from 4:00 in the afternoon, something like that, at past 4 to think about it, to the match.
Yeah.
So the less time you get to think, the more you don't have to worry, I think. So yeah, just got on with it and just relished the challenge, playing against Joe Jordan. But the biggest thing I can remember of that game was a guy called Jimmy Greenough come off the bench who'd been out injured, and he was loved by the Man United fans. And the noise, I mean, even though them days, I think it was 55,000 in the ground that night, and the noise was just unbelievable. This chanting of his name. But it just sort of spurred me on to make sure that he didn't score. So the game was a bit of a drab 0-0, but one that, as a defender, you're proud to be involved in.
It's a great result.
Yeah,
0-0 at Old Trafford, being
so,
central defender.
I was, after that, John got fit again. But what I've done is I've most probably implanted something in the manager's mind, that I can do a job. So they played West Ham in the Cup at Villa Park, and I would think I was playing at Derby for the reserves on that day, and we drew. I can't remember if it was a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw against West Ham. But Brian Kidd got sent off for us. So the replays in the week, I'm not too sure if it was a Tuesday or Wednesday, and it was changed to Ellen Road. So I've gone to Ellen Road with them because I got sort of picked. Which, once again, I'm thinking, this is experience, this is. And I always remember going down for lunch with Joe McBride, who I was rooming with. And he never played, but he thought he was going to be playing because of, obviously, he's a striker, or not a striker, but a forward player. And I remember getting in the lift, and then just as we got down, as we were going up in the lift, or going down in the lift, out gets Gordon Lee. Gordon Lee gets out the lift. As he gets out the lift, he turns to me and Joe McBride and points at me. He says, "You're playing, you're not." And the door shut. So Joe McBride couldn't even have a go at Gordon Lee about him not playing or wanting to know, because the doors had actually shut. And I'm going downstairs thinking, I'm playing in the semi-final of the FA Cup. And what he decided to do was push Billy Wright back to right back, because he must have been happy with what the job Billy did against Man United. Put me in the centre with Mick Lyons. And then he played John Gidman in midfield doing a man-to-man job on Alan Devonshire. So, that was my second appearance. So, to think that you can't get any better than Man United away. You're playing in an FA Cup semi-final against West Ham. And then, obviously, Frank Lampard's dad scored that winning goal. For Evertonians, he did the little jig around the corner flag. Disappointing, but, elation for me in one way, because I play in a semi-final of I'd more or less earned that night 300 times more than my basic, something like that, was it? 100% more, would it be? I was on £150 a week.
Okay.
And we got £750 appearance for playing in that semi-final. Wow. And if we would have won it, we would have got another 750. So my wage would have gone from £150 a week to £1,500 for the following week.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? With the bonuses.
God.
So, the incentive then days was actually to play. I had the younger you were and the less money you were on, the more appearance money you got. So the incentive was from the football club for you to go and play in the first team. So you more or less more than doubled your money a week to go and play in the first team.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't see that now, can you?
No, exactly. You sign on, and then you get these huge wages. I mean, it's just.
Well, it's even the same. In the 80s, to do well at the game, you had to be successful. To earn that bonus to get your wages up to a decent wage. But that was I would say most clubs were like that. So to to look to go and pay your mortgage off or something like that, you had to be playing and winning games and winning trophies.
So take us through then the journey. So you obviously then Howard Kendall joins Everton, and then you were sort of in and out of the team for a couple of years, really, almost. Before you, obviously, there's this transfer request.
I don't think it was too long. I think it was only about a year or two.
Or was it a year?
I don't think it was a year. It was 18 months or so. I think Howard coming in. Did Howard come in about 81?
81 May, yeah, 81
yeah, 81 May. So he then gets the pre-season with us, and do you know that was remarkable. Our first pre-season with Howard Kendall was fantastic. It was like it was more or less an enjoyment to come in, and you enjoyed training. To the fact that not only were you getting fit, but you were enjoying getting fit. The ball games and things that he used to play, everything with a ball, very little running. But when you did run, you run hard. But what the big thing was, you were fresh enough to do exactly the same the next day when you come in. You weren't stiff. You weren't aching and this, that, and the other. It was fantastic to, and then, to be coached the way that he did coach. I mean, it was just a fine tuning really of what you'd already learned from Colin. But it was good to be involved with Howard all the time and his coaching. And I think the big thing was that when he did bring Colin Harvey into the first team role, then the standard of training upped as well. So the training never changed. It just was the standard of training. And the demands in training were a lot higher under Colin. I think Howard was more relaxed. But I think you needed that good cop, bad cop. And Colin was a winner foremost. And it didn't matter how you won sometimes, but you win the game, And that's what you need sometimes. I think you need to just, have somebody that's, it's do or die. Where Howard was a more calming figure out of the both of them. He could lose his rag, don't get me wrong, Howard, but I think he was more, and I just thought the combination of him and Mick Heaton were a little bit too relaxed, if you know what I mean. And then when Colin comes up, then that's when and the three of them really sort of complemented each other then.
Did it sort of work for you in some, when your relationship with Colin worked for you in some respects? Because you're, let's be fair, you're a hard player, and Colin was as well, and sounds like he was that type of coach. And is that maybe how then you took the leap into becoming the club captain? How did that all come about?
I think Colin, obviously through the younger years with the youth team and everything, sort of knew what I was capable of. Right the way through. When I was 16, I was with Colin, and then I thought I got rid of him when I went into the reserves, and he followed me into the reserves. He got the job as a reserves team coach, which was brilliant for me, to have somebody that you really liked and trusted. And then, after a season, I think he got the job as Everton assistant manager or coach, first team coach. So obviously, I think Colin knew my sort of forte and that I was a bit of a leader. And obviously he must have had a word with Howard. I would have thought they discussed it. They don't just give you it out like that. But to get it at the age that I was, that was the biggest surprise. Once again, another surprise in my career.
Well, you were only 23, I think you were? When you became
22 when I first got it.
22. I mean, that is so young to become... Yeah. So young to become club captain.
Yeah, I think the first time I was captain was we played Dundee in the pre-season of 82 or 83. I think we were up in Dundee and we played, and Mark Higgins wasn't playing, so he threw me the armband to lead him out. And I'm looking around me and I'm looking at like David Johnson was there, and Alan Ainscoe, Mickey Walsh, John Bailey, and them type of people. I'm looking around at. I'm thinking, why have I got it and you've not got it? So then you start thinking, he thinks, a lot of me to actually give me. You can't be just going to be left out next week, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
But no, I think certain people raise the game when they're getting captaincy, and sometimes it takes something away from the game. And that as a manager, you can't give somebody the captaincy and then keep giving him the captaincy if you think you're taking something away from his game. You've got something else from him. And I think that's the most important thing. If you're a skipper, you get more out of a person than you do. And if you don't, on the odd occasion you don't, you're still getting something out of him for the game. Yeah, or he's getting something out of his players.
Mm.
So that's for me how a captain should work. That you're getting, if you're not having a particularly good game, you're making sure that other people are on the game, and not just worry about your own.
So you will get games more on the responsibility.
Yeah, well, you will get games that you're not playing well. This is impossible to play 42 games a year, 60 games a year in them days. And have a performance every game. So it's how the effect you have on other players as well.
So then we after you become captain, we played 83, and of course 83 was probably a few question marks over that season, but it was 84 is when we won the FA Cup. What was it like? I mean, that season, going through the FA Cup, and of course you were the captain at that, for that period.
Well, you've got to remember 83, 84 season is the season we won the FA Cup, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
83, 84, not 84, 85.
Yeah, 83,
84. And early on in the 83 season was pretty poor. Pretty poor. So Howard's been there a year, and are the fans seeing any improvement? Maybe not. Does Howard know his best team? Maybe not. And I think, going into that season, things weren't working well. I mean, I don't think Howard was playing as much then. He played the year before. But he'd brought in these players, and it didn't seem to be working. They weren't the players really suitable for Everton. And, lucky for Howard in one way, that the younger guys in the squad were getting more and more mature and getting more and more experience. I include myself in that. I include Graham Sharp in that as well. And I don't think Stevie McMahon was there then. I think he'd left. He had a little bit of a fallout with Howard, and he'd left and to go to Villa. So there was Kevin Richardson coming through, and then Gary Stevens, and obviously Derek Mountfield. They were younger. And he bought Trevor Steven as well, but Trevor wasn't quite ready. And then there was that famous Coventry game where we scraped a win, 2-1 win. And Reedy come on as sub, maybe changed it. But the two things that happened after that game, obviously in the game, to make it 3, was Peter Reid coming on as sub. The next morning, he promoted Colin Harvey to reserve team coach. And then on the Thursday, he bought Andy Gray. I think that was in the November. And it was a massive change in mentality at the club. That, maybe that we thought as youngsters that we got over the hurdle in the fact that we'd beaten our demons at Goodison Park, and the Boo Boys, which there were. There's always Boo Boys, which even when you're doing well, there'll be Boo Boys. There wasn't as many cushions being thrown on the floor on the pitch then, because they used to have cushions in the stand that you used to sit on, and you could hire. And they used to be coming whizzing across the pitch. I remember them. And things went upwards. We went from a bottom 6 side to a top 6 side by the end of the year. And it was them 3 things that changed, I think, the way that we actually, the mindset of people as well at the football club. Peter Reid coming in, which, was finding hard to break into the side. Andy Gray and Colin Harvey. And if you look at them 3 players, they're all winners.
Absolutely winners. Winners.
Yeah. And the 3 of them would do anything to win. So when you've got that, and then you've got players, like myself and Sharpie, Derek and Gary coming through. I think Derek and Gary were quite placid, really, because they were only about 20 20 years of age. But we'd been brought. Colin knew what me and Sharpie were like because he'd brought us up, and I think obviously the fact that Graham then had a mentor in Andy Gray. It's a bit like, I think, Calvert-Lewin and Duncan Ferguson now, that you have a mentor, but this mentor was playing with Sharpie. And telling him, to do this, to do that, got to be more aggressive. And I must admit, I thought Sharpie and Andy at one stage were unplayable.
Yeah, I mean, they were. And walking out of Wembley that day, leading the team, how did that feel?
Which one, the FA Cup or the League Cup? Because obviously the League Cup was the first one we went to, which gives you the taste to go to another one.
Of course, because there was the League Cup first, wasn't it? Which is
Look, I was no stranger to Wembley. I'd actually played there as a 15-year-old.
Oh, really? Okay.
Against England. For Wales, we'd lost 4-1, so I knew what it was like, and there was about 70,000 there that day.
Wow. A 15-year-old, that's incredible.
Yeah, so that was an experience for me. So it was nice to be there. That was a big game for us because we played against Liverpool. And I thought after the game, when we drew, with Liverpool in them days being as good as they were, and streets ahead of us, winning things left, right and centre, European trophies, FA Cups, leagues, I think it gives us that mentality to actually know that we were as good as them and we were a match for them. And pushed us on to be the side we were as well, because it gives us that belief. And once you've had a taste at Wembley, then you want another taste and another taste and another, as much as you can, because it's a great venue to actually play football in. Then that's why I think it sort of demised the FA Cup when they started taking semi-finals there, because there was no disappointment losing a semi-final because you'd already played at Wembley.
I always, as a fan, I always liked it when you went to Ellen Road or wherever you went, and then, or Villa Park, and then of course the final was reserved for Wembley. That always felt better.
Yeah, well,
because it was special, wasn't it?
Well, it was, and the thing was that if you lost that semi-final, it was more disappointing for you because you'd missed out on a chance to play at Wembley. And you look back in the years, and I've said this many a time in interviews, that the players that haven't played at Wembley in the past, and now everybody seems to have played at Wembley. It doesn't seem to be as much as an honour as it has been in the past to actually play it on it. It should be it should be a goal for everybody to get there. And you think of the players that haven't played there in the past. There's some absolutely fantastic players.
Well, the dream was always the FA Cup, because that was what everyone got really excited by, the FA Cup, which has now lost some of its value today, I think, still. I mean, but the FA Cup is still the cup. It's still what every fan dreams of winning, as part. And going to Wembley, they go hand in hand. But I do think it's been watered down over time.
Yeah, and the FA sort of say that people or the clubs don't disrespect it. But I think obviously the FA have done that by having semi-finals there. It's just not the same for me in that respect.
You got to captain Everton, walk the team out against Watford. I think the team, when I'm watching Howard's Ways, the team must have felt reasonably comfortable that day. I mean, Everton were...
No, we didn't. We didn't. No. We knew we had tough games against Watford. We knew they had good players. And if you think about them players that moved on after that year, the likes of Luther, I think, John Barnes. I don't think Luther played that day. I don't even know if he was there. I think it was Mo Johnson and the lad Riley up front. They had O'Callaghan on the wing. They were decent. They were a decent side. But I think the big thing for them, I think they lost their captain, the left back. I don't know if he was injured or suspended. I can't remember his name now. But they lost him, and that was a big, big plus for us. And I think Trevor Steven had a hell of a game, considering he wasn't involved in the semi-final against Southampton at Highbury. I think it was between Terry Curran that year and Alan Irvine.
Okay.
But all of a sudden, after that semi-final, because Sharpie never played in the semi-final. I don't know. It was he sub? Can't remember.
think it was, yeah.
Yeah. So, and if you think of that team, that Adrian Heath and Peter Reid in midfield, Kevin Richardson on the left. It was the first time that team had ever played together.
Wow.
And I think it was the last time we played together and the first time. I'm not too sure because Kev Sheedy was injured. Obviously, he was our sort of left-sided player. But it was the first time that team had ever played. or the first time and last, I think it might have been the first and last time that team, that starting 11 had started. Yeah. So that was a new one on me.
So talk me through, once Everton, we win the game 2-0, and then you get to walk up the steps, the long walk up the Wembley steps to lift the cup. Because that is every boy's dream. What are those moments like?
Yeah, look, it is. That's what it was. It's every boy's dream. What I didn't realise at the time until later on was it was the last time anybody would walk up them 69 steps.
Was it?
Yeah, to lift the FA Cup. They actually reduced it because of the conflict we had with the IRA and health and safety. So they brought I think it was the box lower or something like that. The steps become a lot shorter to get there. But no, it was a great feeling, to have the fans patting you on the back, putting scarves and hats on you and everything. You could have opened a club shop at the end. You had that much memorabilia around you. But it was, it's a thing that every kid in them days would dream of, and I got to live that dream, which was fantastic. And to see how much it meant to everybody else, and when you look back and you see footage of it and how much it meant to Howard as well, that journey. I've never seen a prouder man to know that he built this team. And I think at times that maybe if he was honest, he'd say he didn't think he was anywhere near winning anything. And if he was, maybe it was a couple of years away. But look, it's amazing what momentum and confidence can do. And when you're on a roll, you just find a way of winning. And that's what we did.
Yeah, because Everton really went on. I mean, because we then win the FA Cup, and then the next league season. How do you feel going into that next season? Do you feel you've got a team, you've got something? Because the team's really come together by that point.
Yeah, look, we lost the first home game of the season against Tottenham 4-1. But I'm more disappointed that we've come in, and I think Tottenham had 4 chances. We dominated the game. But you're thinking, and then you play your next game against West Brom, and you don't get anything from that game. And you're thinking, God, this can't be a one-off. Well, where teams just go and win the FA Cup. And they're a good cup team and everything. So to go into the Chelsea game on the Friday, and I think it helped really because it was a televised game. And I think it was one of the first televised Friday night games. And we just didn't want to be on the losing end. And to win it, we thought, if we can get a draw maybe, then it'll be a good result for us. But to win it was even better because it was always a hard place to go to, Stamford Bridge, and didn't matter what team they had. There wasn't the best surroundings in them days, because of the don't know if it was a greyhound track or a speedway track that went round the ground. But it was, you're quite far away from the supporters. It wasn't an intimidating ground by any means, but it was soulless in one way. We got that result. Kevin Richardson scored a goal, and I don't think we looked back from that. We just sort of strived on, and players that wanted to win and wanted to win trophies as well. And I think, Howard's signings, what he kept bringing in, it must have been hard for Howard to actually bring in players that were better than what we had. But he seemed to be bringing players in at the right time to just give us an edge, as in the substitutions in them days didn't change the game because you only had 1 or 2. They were there to, fill in. So that's where your Alan Harpers and your Kevin Richardson come in really handy because they could play in a number of positions. I think Ian Atkins come in. I think Ian had played up front. he played at a fullback, he played at centre back, he played in midfield, so he could play in a number of positions as well. So what they did, he added strength to the squad, and whatever player he brought in always seemed to have an effect in training. That the training stepped up again. So he was quite a good master at that, knowing when to bring players in and when not to, because it didn't half sort of improve the training because you just stepped up a little bit of a gear. Didn't want you relaxing because that player might take your place.
What was it about Howard Kendall what was his qualities to be able to take Everton from where they were to where we became?
Management. That he was ruthless as well, because I think you have to be, and that's what worked well with him. But I think his man management skills were really, really good. In them days, you weren't just a manager as well; you were a coach, a financial expert as well, telling the players how to invest. And if they ever wanted, if you wanted advice or you were down or marriage counsellor or whatever, you went to see the manager, and he would talk you through. He'd been there and done it, because most of the managers them days had played the game. And with Howard, he was no better person, was there?
Well, no, he won the league with Everton, didn't he? Of course, back in the day. So I mean, he had that experience as a player to then bring it through, and he obviously knew the winning mentality, what it needs to look and feel like.
I think obviously you've got to have the players that have got that. It's no good just the manager, but it's having the players, and he's and the coaching staff as well. So he's had players, coaches there that have actually been involved in championship winning sides, FA Cup winning sides, played in top games. That's in Colin, and I think Terry Darricott had come into the fold after Howard went, and then Colin had the job. But it was important that and I think the connection with the football club as well, and what that was about, and the supporters. So it was all going in the right direction.
And then getting through to the end of that season, when of course we're closing down on a treble, we've got that's the right season, yeah. So it was 84-85 when it was we won the league and the Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah, and then the FA Cup loss to Man U.
Oh yeah, I know, painful that. But yeah. I mean, getting to the end of the season and just thinking, we've got the legs, we can get there. I mean, how was the team feeling? How were you all feeling at that stage, thinking there's a chance?
I thought I felt fine. I heard stories later on now about Sharpie and Andy Gray, how they looked at each other and they said the legs weren't there. They didn't have the legs. But if you have a look at the match, we dominated it. I mean, obviously, it's always highlighted for the goal of Norman Whiteside and Kevin Moran sending off, which changed the game, because Frank Stapleton was playing up front and went back to centre half and had most probably the game of his life at centre half, and that great goal by Norman. But we controlled the game. I didn't feel tired. I think people, it's one of them, and you're looking for excuses. When we played Rapid Vienna on the Wednesday and then come back that night, didn't get back till 2-3 in the morning, and then we're in Trent. I think we were off Thursday and then down to London on the Friday to play the Wembley game. So I can't remember if we trained at Belfield or if we trained down in London, because we used to do that sometimes. Travel down early and then train down there, just a little sort of loosener head tennis. So I can't even remember what we did. Can't even now.
I mean, before we get to the Cup Winners' Cup final, of course we played Bayern Munich in the semi, which is possibly one of the most talked about games of the first leg, it being 0-0 away, and then quite possibly the most famous Everton game. Fans, players all talk about the 3-1 home win against Bayern Munich, being 1-0 down at half time. What was it that Kendall said at half time to rally everyone?
Yeah, it was just about, just believe in yourselves, and obviously told me and Derek not to receive the ball off Nev, because he wanted the ball played quickly up to the strikers. So he said if they can't get it out to the fullbacks, you kick it. And he just thought that Sharpie and Andy would dominate them, which they did. And he just thought they were physically stronger than them. I think he gave us that belief. But he's obviously that famous saying that you get the ball in the box, and he did say that the Gladys Street will suck the ball in the back of the net, because I don't think he played in many. If he did, he hasn't said or did say that he played in an atmosphere like that. But he knew there could be an atmosphere like that at Goodison, because that was building up over that period, and it was like that. You won't play in any better atmospheres than that when you're it's like being a cage fighter. You're in that cage, and it's, to get out, you do anything to survive. And Howard knew that, we could play. There's no doubt. He knew we could play, but he also knew that we could outfight people as well. And if we needed to do that to get a result, that's what we had to do. And I think we did that on the night.
I mean, that game was X-rated, I think, for if saying that. I'm sure there was a few tackles flying in from yourself.
I think there'll be a watershed on that when they're 9 o'clock or something. Do not watch this. So they make the weekend derby look timid, I must admit. So it's one of them nights you'll never ever forget. And I don't think, well, the Evertonians don't forget about it, because they keep talking about it. You now get people's grandkids and kids and grandkids coming up to you and saying they wish that they would have been there that night. Their dad or their granddad tells them about it. And it's one of them talked about things that will, I think, go on and on until the next one. And hopefully there is a next one. Well, obviously it won't be hopefully it is at Goodison in the next couple of years. But obviously with us moving grounds, then you won't get that again, I wouldn't have thought.
Do you think we're heading back to glory years, potentially, with the way we're going with Carlo?
It's early doors yet.
Yeah,
and I don't want to be sort of blowing trumpets or whatever, but I've seen a massive sort of change in everything at Goodison, in the way that we address matches, our mentality, everything. I think the standard is raised. And that's all down to one man. There's no doubt about that. By all accounts, I was told that he weren't too happy after the Blackpool game in pre-season. So maybe that was a good thing to have. And the riot act may be read. So you need that now and again. But I just think the tempo, especially, that team against... I'm not too sure how much that team would have changed against Blackpool. I'm not too sure on the team, but from the one on Saturday, because for me, it's only 3 players that have come in that have actually changed it.
Yeah.
And the way that we're playing, and the manager, of course. But then, them 3 players that have come in would not have been at Everton Football Club if it wasn't for Carlo Ancelotti. Well, especially 2 of them wouldn't. Decore, I think, maybe would have, because it's Premiership football again for him. But the other 2, there's 100% they wouldn't have been at Everton Football Club without Carlo Ancelotti.
Absolutely. There's no question around that. I mean, players play. If you work well with a manager, I mean that all works in all professions, doesn't it? If you work well with a manager, often you follow that manager because you believe in them.
That's good to see, because I think a manager should have a full input on the players that are coming in. You as a director of football or whatever should be going out there identifying players and throwing them to the manager. But there's no better person than the manager to go and get players. Obviously, Richarlison coming into Everton Football Club, Marco Silva had him at Watford, so he knew what he was like. But a lot of these managers don't go and watch players anymore. And that's a big worry for me. They don't watch players, and if they do, they're watching it off a DVD. And the one thing is, when you watch a DVD, is that if an agent's actually giving you one, then they're only showing the good bits. They're not showing you the bad bits of anybody, because they want to sell the player. And I think that these 3 signings are Carlos. And it's evident to see that.
They're pinpointed almost. They're specific. He wants those players because he knows exactly the job that they're going to do.
That's right. And I think when you got better players in, your other players get better. And I think that's improved as well. We have got better. So it's You know, I think Seamus this year has started off really, really positive. It's unlucky that he got injured again. But I think you can see an improvement in his game as well.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
I think his standards had dropped last year, but it's all of a sudden, gone there again. So that's nice to see. Yeah, and Keane looks as if I don't know if this is the lockdown that's made Keane a better player, or, is it Carlo Ancelotti? But you've got to, not everything's the manager. There's other people there as well. And it's got to be the person itself that wants to change and wants to be better. But if the manager's bringing in that mentality, then they are going to get better.
We had a question from Twitter, by the way. So we're talking about Seamus Coleman there, and Mark Hodgetts. He said, "Who from the current squad do you think will take over a captaincy when Coleman hangs up his boots, and why?" So who do you think potentially is going to be?
Well, hopefully that's not for a few years.
Yeah, hopefully.
And you would have thought that the team would be changing most probably a couple of times. A few players have come in, so it's depending who they bring in. At the moment, I think sort of Mason Holgate was mentioned, but at the moment, could he get back in the side? This is the thing that we've got now, is that we've got competition, which is, would he be coming in for somebody like Mina, or would he come in for Keane? But obviously he's got I think you need somebody that knows something about the football club. And he would be one of the guys, and I look from midfield to the back four. I don't look forward, as in a striker or a wide player to be a captain. I think it's mainly them central midfield areas of the pitch, or your fullbacks.
I agree with you. I like a captain to be your style, a grit, the fighter of the team.
But I think you've got to obviously have everything in front of you.
Yeah,
it's easier to be a captain if you've got everything in front of you. I think, obviously being a captain. But that's why I think a lot of centre-halves, they see a lot of things. They can direct things and everything, orchestrate whatever it is.
What do you think? What do you think it takes to be a great captain for a club?
Like I said, I think it's down to the manager. That there's no good. It's no good that we've given captaincies to somebody where you're taking away something from the game. That captaincy really has got to enhance their game and make them, perform, better. It's until you give somebody the captaincy, you never know. It can swing one way or the other. But yeah, you want your captain to be your leader, and somebody you can go to as well. So only the manager will know that. And that's why some people you think who get the games, under Marco Silva, was quite annoyed really that he'd taken away really, I think, the importance of being a captain, especially the captain of Everton, when he was choosing a different captain every week. And poor old Tom Davis was given the captaincy, and I'd say, how can he be the captain when he's not a regular? That for me, you've got to be a regular of the team to actually get that captaincy. So I felt sorry for Tom in one respect, that I think first and foremost, maybe it was given to him too early. And I don't think it enhanced his performances either. I think it puts it on him. You've got to take him out that zone and put him back into the zone, because his form did dip when he got that captaincy.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. It's sometimes if it's not right for that person, because they don't necessarily don't align to having that
it might
responsibility.
Not be the right time. It might not be the right time for that person. That person, if he's there when he's 25, 26, might be the right time then. But to the age that he was and not a regular, I think was really more of a hindrance to him than it was an enhancement.
Now, just on a slightly different. You played, of course, at Goodison, but also played for Wales. What's the difference when you're playing in quite different teams, different leagues, different tournament styles? What do you find the difference between those? You're playing FA Cup, you're playing Cup Winners' Cup, we're playing in Europe, you're playing in league games, you're playing international football. Does your style change? Because of course you're playing for different people, different managers, different types of games. How do you adapt to all of those different types?
Did later, I must admit, under Terry Yorath. We played a different system than what we played at Everton. The one thing I would say, 84 onwards, playing for Wales, was that I played for a better Everton side than an international team.
Mm.
Pre that, I was playing for an international team that was better than an Everton side. I think that's because of the Everton sides weren't that great. But then what changed was when Terry come in, and then after a while we found a system that suited the players. So you'd be looking at 4-4-2 that every club would be playing, but we found a system that suited us. We're playing 3 centre backs, 2 wing backs, but we played the centre backs as me being a sweeper, an old-fashioned sweeper, and 2 markers. But we had one marker in Mark Hazelwood who was actually quite comfortable playing in midfield. He was a big brute of a lad, and would kick his own grandmother, but also quite technically good, left footer. He played for Leeds, Bradford, Newport, Luton, and that. And Mark, if they only played one up front, these European sides like your Belgiums and maybe your Germanys, then we'd push Mark into midfield to make an extra midfield player. So, but that wasn't done overnight. I think he was. I think he was blessed that he had a few good players that actually knew a little bit about the game, because we were getting to the age of 26, knew a little bit more than we did when we were 22. And I always remember one coaching session that I had to stop it and ask Terry and Peter Shreves, who was a great coach, by the way, ex-Tottenham manager, and asked Peter Shreves, what does he want us to do when the ball goes in this when the ball goes in this area of the pitch? How are we going to deal with it? And it was all about shuttling across as a back 5, but not a back 5. We ended up as a back 4, and it was just that we were comfortable in doing that. He was, because I still think good players need to be coached at time. They need to be told what to do. You can't expect them just to go out there and play. They still need to be told what they want to do, what you want of them, what's expected of them. And I think first Terry Yorath didn't do that, but then he started doing it. And once he started doing that, I think we improved as a team, and we were so close to qualifying with the players that we had.
I mean, big thing playing for Wales. You played, I think you had 59 caps.
Yeah, very good. 37, I think, captain. So it was, it was the biggest gripe was that we never qualified. We come close on 3 occasions, I think, and just couldn't get over that line. And people look at the side and say, how did you not qualify for that? Well, like anything else, the starting 11, if everybody was fit, was quite, competitive, and goals in them, clean sheets in them. But it's after that, when people are suspended or injured, what you've got to come off the bench can't change the game. And you see that now in most international sides, that they've got benches to actually win the game, and the game's won these days tactically from the bench, whereas it wasn't then. And we never had that depth in the squad, really. We were calling on players who were playing for Wrexham, Swansea and Cardiff, who were playing in the lower leagues, Charlton's, Port Vale's. But them lads, when they did come in, did a great job for us. But when you do sort of have to rely on them for a full 90 minutes of football, then it becomes quite difficult. But they did the job. They did the best of their capability. They didn't let us down. Everybody looks at Paul Bowden for missing that penalty against Romania, but nobody mentions Neville Southall letting the ball go in from 40 yards out from Hadji, which he was very good at. That Nev made a mistake that you don't expect Nev to make, to be fair. One of the rare mistakes he made. But Paul Bowden suited us the way that we played. He was a regular for the team, even though we had Mark Bowen, who was playing regular for Norwich in the First Division, which is the Premiership now. Paul Bowden was playing for Swindon, but because he played as a left wing back for Swindon, He was, he suited he suited the system better, and I think that's what we've been guilty of in the past at Wales, is that under John Toshack we picked a team that suited him rather than suited the players. You've got to find a system that suits the players, because you can't go out and buy players to play that system that you want to play.
What sort of, you played against the Germanys and the Brazils at that level. I mean, what were the standout games for you?
Well, I've never lost against Brazil.
That's a good statement.
I played 2 games against them, both at home. One at Ninian Park on a Sunday afternoon, 52 or 54,000. And I had a goal disallowed. Somebody else was offside, chipped the keeper from 30 yards out. So, and then the next game, I think we beat them 1-0 at Cardiff Arms Park, which was shown through in the lockdown. Them Germany beating Germany 1-0, Belgium 2-1. Ryan Giggs' first game was my last game. We beat them 2-1. That was a great game for me, because I was actually at Cardiff then. And they were playing 3rd division football, and everybody wanted to know why they've got a player from the 3rd division coming back to make an appearance for Wales. So, but that was a great game for me. And I'll always remember my first game against Czechoslovakia, because they had some great players then. I know Panaka was in the squad, but he never played that day, and that was the big thing for us, that he wasn't playing. And I was marking, which they reckon was one of the best Czechoslovakians that played football, a fella called Mario Mazny. And they said, "Are you not worried?" I said, "Look, I've never heard of him." Never heard of the fella. So I'm sure he'd never heard of me as well. But I had a pretty decent game against him.
Playing with Ryan Giggs, you mentioned just there. I mean, could you see even in those early days the talent that he was going to become?
Look, he knew he had something. He was quick, but he was just quick then. I don't think the potential was there, but he hadn't really done anything to actually show you that he was going to be as good as what he was. But he was certainly there to see. He was quick, he was rapid, and everybody just talking about him. Obviously, I played against him for Everton. I think he made his debut. Come on, at Old Trafford against us, and then he played at Goodison as well once, and he was you could see that he was. I think the biggest thing was that you just worry about players that when they get tagged as the next George Best, and they're not, are they anywhere near that type of player? But look, he was a great player. I think he was the nearest that there has been to him. But to play as long as he has, is just an absolute credit to him. And it's nice to see him. He's getting his chance as a manager for Wales.
Yeah, it's really doing real well. Kevin, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure talking to you about Everton in the 80s. And just a final couple of questions. When you look back and you think of everything you achieved at the 80s, is there anything that really sticks out for you and thinks, wow, that was... I mean, it's still, even as a fan, it's still, for me to believe what we achieved in the 80s is still an incredible thing. But for you as the player and a captain, what do you look back on so fondly?
I think the FA Cup win, that is a big milestone. Your first trophy after so long as well for Evertonians. I think it was 14 years, wasn't it? 14 years, I think, for a trophy. So that was a big thing. I think that was because that kicked everything. That kick-started everything. That'd be one of the moments, I think, that, your first trophy, especially when you're skipper as well. So,
what about scoring a 30-yarder at Anfield?
It's gone to 60, 70 yards now. So it's look, the big thing for that was it was quite memorable, because there's not many people actually score, especially there in the Cop end as well. But that is, we won the game. But I think there's more memorable games that I've played in. The Sharpie goal. That was
great
most
stuff.
a great game to be involved in. I'm not going to say everybody's one of the favourites is the 4-4 draw, but that's not, as a defender, that's not a great game to play in.
As a fan, that was a brilliant game. That was incredible. Tony Cottee was my favourite player back then, and
he never started, did he?
Oh, unbelievable!
I think he come on, didn't he?
No, he came on as a sub. Yeah, he came on as a sub, and he got the two goals to equalise.
That was a bit strange because I had that feeling that day that there was always going to be goals in the game because of the way. That's when we played with 3 centre backs that day. And I was a little bit disappointed because Howard threw me. Obviously, he wanted me. I don't know if he'd heard me talking or I'd spoken to him about the way Wales plays. The way that he set us up, I thought, I'm going to play as a sweeper here again. Oh, that's all right. I'm quite comfortable with that. But no, he played me as a marker. And I had to mark Peter Beardsley. And then he had Martin Keown on the sweeper. And to be fair to Martin, he wasn't the cleverest person in the world. And I didn't think that he could do that job. But, the manager wants you to do a job. I went and did it. And I think it proved that because in the replay, he asked me to play that position. But I thought, no, you're all right. I think I'll play Mark Peter.
Yeah. What was it like? I mean, Peter Beardsley was an England player. He was a real...
When he come to Everton Football Club, he was a massive step up. He was unbelievable at what type of player he was. He was doing things in training that I've never seen a player do. Is that something different? Because Liverpool played a little bit different. We never really played with a number 10. That as you see a number 10 now. But Liverpool did. They always had Kenny. And then they had Peter. And as a replacement for Kenny, then Peter. And it just shows you how good Kenny was because I thought Kenny was the better playing out of him and Beardsley. No hands, but Peter was when he come to us, I think it showed you that, that he was a step and he was coming to the end of his career. He did things in training that, and he's so enthusiastic for the game still at that age. He was a fantastic signing for the club.
Yeah, I think everyone loved Peter Beardsley. But, I mean, not many players can make that transition from Liverpool to Everton. I can't think of any others.
Kevin Sheedy.
Of course, Kevin Sheedy came from...
Alan Harper. There was a few. There was a few that we've had. Johnny Morrissey in the past. So there is a few there.
God, we should definitely talk about Sheedy. I mean, I think it's... I can't remember who said it. Maybe it's Neville Southall that said it. Said that Sheedy was like our Messi or Maradona. And
well, he's the Rodriguez of the team.
Yeah.
If you looked how far that he run and how quick he run, then it's a non-entity. But pass completion would be, I wouldn't say it'd be high because he'd be trying to pass the ball forward. He wouldn't be playing safe. He'd be looking to thread balls through to Tony Cottee, Graham Sharps, Andy Grays, Gary Linekers, whoever, Adrian Eates. Top player. And you don't realise how good he is until you play with him. He's got a sweet, sweet left foot. And I've not seen a left foot like it in the game of football, I must admit.
The famous 2 free kicks.
Yeah, very good against Ipswich Town. One in one corner, one in the other. That was just Kev all over. Great player, great lad, and part of the team. He's one of them that was that cog in the machine that if we weren't scoring, he was, and if he wasn't scoring, he was creating. It would be interesting to know how many goals that he actually sort of contributed to. Assists, because his assist rate would be top draw.
Kevin, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for today, and from myself and the fans, thank you so much for everything you did in the 80s.
Lovely.
For Everton and continue to do. I mean, it's just it's an amazing thing for us, and also being a part of Howard's Way, the film, working with Rob Sloman. I think it's really given context with a lot of the fans that weren't there or were too young to really understand what it was like at that time.
I think now I'd like to know what the 70s was like, the 70s team, and how they bonded and I'd like to see with the lads and let them talk and maybe do one of that. That would be great to see another one of them. So a Catrick's way. So something like that. That'd be good. That'd be good because obviously that was my era as well, growing up as an Evertonian. Winning the league and the FA Cup in '66. So just sort of that would be good to have as well, I think.
So what was it? The FA Cup in '66. We won the league in 1970.
62, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Was it 62, 61, something like that? Then 66, and then you got 70 as well. So 68 as well, we missed out on the cup.
Yeah.
Against West Brom. So it'd be nice. That I would, love something like that.
I'm right in saying, so 66 was Sheffield Wednesday in the cup.
Yeah.
We were 2-0 down.
2-0 down, Treble. And
yeah.
What's her name? I keep forgetting his name now. Oh,
I'm not sure.
It'll come to me.
We need to get Rob Sloman to do a follow-up. So we do the team of the 60s and the 80s, or 60s and the 70s.
That'd be interesting. Be interesting because they were a fantastic side. Harvey Kendall Ball,
Joe
Royal up front, Johnny Morrissey on the left, and Brian LeBone, John Hurst. It's just, it'd be interesting because I'm look at them and very similarities that people in certain positions are important to the side.
Maybe this is an important thing for Everton's heritage to work out the trends between the 60s and 70s teams, the 80s team.
I tell you now, not many of the 70s side or 60s, late 60s would pick any of the ones from the 84 side, and likewise the 84 side wouldn't pick any from the 70s one. I know the game was a little bit different, but I think that tells you it's pretty close in, because you could have a debate for every player on that park except for one. Then that would be the keeper.
Yeah, you can't debate over Neville Southall.
So that is the only debate that you would have, would be on every player except for, because you'd have your Royal or your Sharps, your Morrisseys or your Sheedys. I think in the midfield, obviously you'd put Alan Ball in. There's no doubt about that. But there's an argument for every player on the pitch.
I can't believe we've gone this far without talking about Southall, actually.
Yeah.
What was it like playing with him? He's just an ultimate...
Easy. Just let him get on with it. Like he does now. Just ignore him and let him get on with it. No, he was top draw. No doubt about it. He was as good as there has been or ever will be. And he made hard saves look easy, because he never really wanted to make a meal out of it. The distribution was good. In fact, his distribution improved immensely as he got older. He just a commanding figure. He wasn't the biggest of goalkeepers that I would say, but he actually made the goal look a lot smaller than anybody else that was in it. He just filled it because he was in the right position. His starting position was always right. He worked a lot on that, and as a trainer, he's most probably one of the hardest trainers I've ever seen or worked with.
I remember one of my first games I went to. I'm from Devon, so my dad used to take me to the Everton Southampton away game. My dad was amazed because my dad used to play goal to it as well, and Neville Southall would stand there in training, and my dad was like, the ball would just deflect off him, and he didn't even. He was just like so commanding. He'd stick out an arm, the ball would just deflect off, and then he just said he'd never seen anything quite like Neville Southall.
That's right. That's what he was. He'd get it all over the place with the ball, and mainly because he was in the right place, but he was always sort of strong with it as well, so that when the ball did hit him, it bounced further than most keepers. Wouldn't roll in the line of the striker to put the ball in the back of the net and have an easy little touch in. He was very commanding, but like I say, he was top guy as well.
Did it give you a fair bit of confidence knowing that you had someone as strong as Southall behind you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Amazed really, but that's, you always hope your keeper's going to be like that. I always said that's what he's there for. But he was there, when needed. top concentration levels, top saves, mainly because he's concentrating. But he was really agile. Nev, he's people get carried away now because they see this big guy on the screen or whenever they see him. You got to remember he wasn't like that when he played. Not when I played with him, and he was like that. He was like that, as fit as they come.
And you played obviously because club and country, because of course he was there at Wales. So you had a long playing career together.
I think we had a good understanding as well, because obviously with me being quick, you can have a really poor understanding with keepers if they don't know that you're that quick. You can end up clattering into each other. So he knew that when I was going to get a ball and when I wasn't going to get a ball, that he'd be able to, maybe his starting position would change a little bit, or he'd come out for balls. And it's getting to know, the players that you're playing in front of, and obviously the person that's behind you as well. So you'd more or less know that Nev, like I say, I had a great understanding with him and closing shots down, that I'd always give him one side of the goal to hit so that Nev could adjust his body position. But then when the other keepers go in and you do exactly the same, the ball's going in the back of the net, you realise that Nev was working off your body position. So, when other goalkeepers weren't as good, so they didn't do that. So it's all about working off your partner's positioning, and I did that with the centre halves and the fullbacks as well.
Is that something you talk through a lot in training?
No.
So is it more like an intuition that you have?
It's more of an understanding, I think, of the way that each one of you play and knowing each other's games, and that's what you've got to study as well. Where the weak points is, where the sort of strong points are. And you don't realise that until you actually come out of the game and you're playing lower down, and you rectify everybody else's mistake, but when you make a mistake, nobody's there to rectify it. So the higher you go, then mistakes are really covered up by players who you play with, who actually understand your game.
Wow, Kevin, thank you so much for today.
Okay, mate.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been a dream come true talking to you. So okay, thanks again. You speak to you soon. Thank you. Cheers.
All right, Paul. See you now. Bye.